Hey, what's going on, everybody? 2WO96 here, and thanks for tuning in and watching this new interesting video right here. I want to give everyone a welcome back. I know it's been a hell of a long time since I've made a video like this. Y'all know I've been so busy with school and my studies lately, and we just had final exams a week ago, and for a long time, I've had no time to make any videos because of all work I need to get done the last few months. But now I'm finally free for a little bit of time before summer classes start in a few weeks. So anyways, as you can see by the title of this video, I'm going to be doing a review on the Atlanta Falcons 2019 NFL schedule. So now before I get started on my video for the 2019 schedule for the Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to do a brief recap of the 2018 schedule for the Falcons. Not the season, but just how the schedule went. So I'm going to pull this up right now on my laptop. Let's see, 2018 Falcons schedule. Because see, I know how, we all know how the season went, but I just want to pull up the schedule. Now, personally for me, I think the 2018 schedule for the Falcons was complete utter trash. Now, if you're a Falcons fan, you might understand why you or I hated the 2018 schedule. But for those who don't know, I personally hated the 2018 Falcons schedule for several reasons. Now, number one, I hated how the bye week occurred. Well, actually, no, the bye week was actually at a pretty good time. In 2018, it's just that I had a problem. Number one, I hated how the schedule was unbalanced with the road games and the home games before the bye and after the bye week, because the first, I think it was the first 7 weeks of the season before the bye week in 2018. I believe 5 of our first 7 games were at home. And then we only had 2 games on the road, and those 2 games on the road were in Philly and in Pittsburgh. And I think we opened the season against Philly on Sunday Night Football. No, not Sunday night, Thursday night, because Philly were the defending Super Bowl champs. And then that disaster in Pittsburgh, a place where the Falcons historically don't ever win at. So 5 of our first 7 games were on the road, and then after the bye week, 6 of our last Hold up, because it was, 9 games. Okay, 6 of our last 9 games were on the road, and we only had 3 remaining home games. That was absolutely so stupid. Like, to have 5 of your first 7 games at home and then 6 of your last 9 games on the road. Like, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I absolutely hated that. That's the one thing I hated about the 2018 Falcons schedule. Now, another thing about the 2018 Falcons schedule I hated is that, I hated how all of our division rivalry games were at home first, and then the rest of our division rivalry games were on the road. That's another thing I hated. But again, that's because remember I talked about how we had all those home games early on. So, and that's another reason why the Falcons weren't good in 2018. We got into an early hole, and a lot of those losses were at home, so we knew we were going to have a tough slate to close out the season with all those road games, and we could never recover from that. So anyways, those are all the reasons why I could not stand the 2018 schedule for the Falcons. And for us Falcons fans, we all know how 2018 went, right? It was a complete disappointment after our exciting 2-year run throughout 2016 and 2017. So, and I believe part of the reason why we missed the playoffs in 2018 was not only because of the injuries and the missed opportunities, but also because of how horribly unbalanced the schedule was. I just mentioned that already. So now here we go, folks. So here's my official review on the 2019 Atlanta Falcons schedule. I wanted to get this video done when the schedule came out, but again, like I said, I've been so busy lately. I could not make any videos on the Falcons schedule or the draft because the NFL draft occurs like in late April, and around that time is the same time I'm doing final exams at the same time. So it's not really a good time for me to make videos. So I'm kind of late for this, but it's better late than never, and I want to give my review and my personal thoughts on this 2019 schedule. So this is going to be really interesting. So here we go. Let me pull this up, and starting with the Minnesota Vikings in week 1. Now, as the schedule goes on, I'm going to bring up the opponent's win and loss record and their playoff finish if they make the playoffs. So the Vikings finished with the final record of 8-7-1 last year, and they missed out on the playoffs thanks to Kirk Cousins being Kirk Cousins again in big moments. And I believe they played the Chicago Bears to close out the regular season last year. And the Vikings had a chance to clinch a playoff berth had they won that game. And the Eagles took care of business. The Eagles took care of business against whoever they played that week, sitting at 9-7, and the Vikings would have finished 9-6-1 with the last playoff spot. But instead, it was the Eagles who got the last playoff spot at 9-7 because Kirk Cousins had another bad moment in the big game, just like he did against the Giants week 17 of 2016 when he was still in Washington. So the Falcons will have to play the Vikings in Minnesota, and to be honest, that won't be easy because the Falcons have struggled against the Vikings lately, especially since Mike Zimmer became the head coach in 2014. And it's on the road too, and I believe the Falcons have lost 3 straight to the Vikings. Of course, that 2014 disaster in Minnesota when our offense was doing so well, but our defense was putrid. Because, we all know throughout Matt Ryan's career, great offense, he's putting up all these amazing numbers, but the defense always lets him down. Yet, people still continue to bash Matt Ryan for no reason. It's really sad. It's like our fan base just does not understand how the game of football works and how it's a team sport. I mean, you just look at all those, and I give Tom Brady credit. Like, Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of this era, but he's had top 10 defenses every year because of Bill Belichick. Not only Bill Belichick is a great defensive coach, but he's a great coach when it comes to strategy as well. So, you can't blame the Falcons for their poor defense. You can't blame Matt Ryan for the Falcons' poor defensive play over the years. So, anyways, back to the Vikings. We've lost 3 straight. In 2015, that's probably the most forgettable game for me. I was at Ponce City Market when that was actually the first time I ever went to Ponce City Market in 2015. The same weekend the Falcons faced the Vikings. That was like a 2010 loss. And that was during the time when the Falcons were collapsing after their 5-0 start. So then in 2017, the Shark year, when our scoring offense took a nosedive after being high-powered in 2016. We held a really hot Vikings team to only 14 points, but our offense could only put up 9 points. I mean, that was our last game against the Vikings, by the way. So the Falcons are going to have to come into Minnesota with a good game plan. And we all know the pressure is on with everything on the line for Dan Quinn in 2019, right? So week 1 games are always nail biters for the Falcons. Even before Dan Quinn got to Atlanta, when we still had Mike Smith, the 2013 and 2014 openers against the Saints in New Orleans and in Atlanta. The first opener in New Orleans was decided by a goal line stand, which we lost. And then the second opener in Atlanta in 2014 was decided in overtime, which we won. In Dan Quinn's first game as the head coach on Monday Night Football against the Eagles, we won in a tight 26-24 game. In 2016, which was a special year for us, we lost our first game against the Bucs 31-24 before making a deep Super Bowl run. Then in 2017, we had a heart stopper against the Bears in Chicago, which was decided at the goal line, and we escaped 23-17. And remember, we escaped that game because that was the game when we faced Mike Glenn, and thankfully Trubisky wasn't starting yet, and Mike Glennon was terrible. Yet we still had trouble trying to stop the Bears' running game. And I believe what the play of that game was on 3rd down. It was a 3rd and long, I think. And Matt Ryan got out of the pocket. He escaped, I think, a defensive tackle. Then he threw that huge bomb to Austin Hooper for a touchdown. And we took a 20-10 lead. And then the Bears stormed back and made it 2017. And then Matt Bryant got the field goal to take the 23-17 lead. And man, the Bears drove down the field and got to the goal line. And man, we survived that game. That was part of the reason why we barely made the playoffs in 2017, because of that huge escape in Chicago. So, and then, of course, in 2018, last year, we lost a heart stopper at the goal line against the Eagles, 18-12. And that came back to hunt the Falcons, of course. So think about that, people. Half of our season openers the last 6 seasons. Actually, I think most of our season openers, all of our season openers the last several seasons were decided at the goal line. Well, no, my bad. I meant to say that half of our season openers the last 6 seasons were 6-point games decided at the goal line. And the others were just like nail biters. The 2-point game against the Eagles on Monday night, the 3-point overtime game against the Saints. So, the season openers for the Falcons have been really exciting. It gets your heart pumping. It's like, welcome back to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So what does history tell us? So, our opener in Minnesota is more than likely going to be a tight one for the ages. And with Kirk Cousins being the quarterback and the fact that Kirk Cousins only beats teams with records of 8-8 or worse, Falcons, you better win this one or else. So anyways, now we go on to week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles, which is going to be another nationally televised Sunday night game on NBC. But the only difference is, for the first time in a while, the Falcons are at home against the Eagles for once. Thank God. I mean, think about this. How many times do the Falcons have to go to Philly and play the Eagles every single time? Now, keep this in mind, Falcons fans. This will be the 15th time in 18 seasons that we are playing the Eagles, whether it's in the regular season or the postseason. Think about this. Since 2002, the Falcons and the Eagles have played every season except for 2007, 2013, and 2014. It's almost like the Eagles have become the Falcons' biggest NFC rival outside of our division. And the Eagles are definitely the Falcons' biggest NFC East rival for sure, at least in my opinion. But the good news is they're finally coming to Atlanta instead of us having to go to Philly, which is a brutal place to play for the Falcons because all the previous 3 losses to the Eagles have been in Philly. And before then, when the Falcons beat the Eagles 3 straight times, two of those games were at home in the Georgia Dome, when it was still the Georgia Dome. And then in 2012, we had a rare win in Philly, which was Mike Smith's best team versus Andy Reid's worst team before he got fired. So again, the Eagles last season, they finished with the record of 9-7, and they barely got the last playoff spot thanks to Kirk Cousins being Kirk Cousins as usual with the Vikings. So the Eagles ended up going to Chicago and took down Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears' stout defense with the 16-15 victory in the wild card game, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it was 16-15. I would have to look back. And then, of course, Cody Parkey missed, the former Auburn kicker. He missed that field goal wide left. Yeah, so and then of course in the divisional round playoff, the Eagles fell to the Saints, to the Aints 2014, thanks to this fluky interception. I think there was a receiver who tipped it and then it fell into the Saints defender's hands. And that's how the Eagles season ended. And they were the defending Super Bowl champs at the time, of course. So here we go. Week 2, nationally televised under the spotlight. The Eagles in our Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's going to be lit, y'all. Another installment in the Falcons-Eagles rivalry. And no excuses for losing to the Eagles this time, Falcons fans. We won in primetime at home against the Eagles in 2015. We won in primetime at home against the Eagles in 2011. So, you know what? Let's win in primetime in week 2 against the Eagles in 2019. So that was in a 4-year cycle too. Think about that. Yeah, absolutely. Because, let's see, 2019, 2021. Yeah, 4-year cycle. 2011, that was on NBC. 2015 was on Monday Night Football. And then 2019. Those are Think about that, because think about it. We've been to Philly way more than the Eagles having to come to Atlanta. So now we're on to week 3 against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. So here we go. The first AFC team of the season, and this time we're playing the AFC South. Now, before I get to my thoughts on the Colts, let me get this out of my system. Trigger warning, I hate to be honest, but the Falcons have been awful against the AFC lately. Let me bring out some numbers here, and you're going to be shocked here. Since Dan Quinn took over as the Falcons head coach, the Falcons started off well against the AFC, winning 5 of his first 6 AFC games. You know, obviously, our first AFC game was a 48-21 blowout against the Houston Texans. Then that ugly 10-7 win in Nashville. Yeah, the ugly 10-7 win in Nashville when Manberger was starring. And I think had Marcus Mariota been starring instead of Manberger, we would have lost that game. That, of course, that was the first year of Dan Quinn, the first year of Shanahan, when our offense wasn't as good and we had a horrible center and all that. So, and then our 23-17 victory in Jacksonville against the Jags. And then the following year in 2016, we had this big 35-28 win in Oakland against the best Raiders team in 14 years at the time. And then the 23-16 win in Denver against the Broncos, who were the defending Super Bowl champs at the time. And we were the only NFC South team to beat the Broncos in 2016, and we did it in Denver. So, and that was the game that showed that we were for real in 2016. Now, the only loss in Dan Quinn's first 6 games against the AFC happened to be against the Colts, who I'm talking about right now, which was a disaster from what I remember, because I believe a backup quarterback was starting that game and we still lost. So, yeah, the turning point when it came to Dan Quinn's success against the AFC versus his failures against the AFC lately, the turning point was from our win against the Broncos in Denver to our loss to the Chargers at home. And I was at that Chargers game back in 2016. And we blew a 17-point lead against the Chargers team who was mediocre at the time. And since that Chargers game, hear me out. Since that loss to the Chargers in 2016, we have lost 11 of our last 12 AFC games, which includes the Super Bowl collapse, by the way. And our only win in that stretch was against a 5-11 Jets team in New York, which was a 25-20 victory. So are you kidding me? So just a heads up as I go over these next 3 games on our schedule against the AFC South. Just keep in mind, coming into 2019, the Falcons must get over the hump against the AFC. And one more thing, since 2013, the Falcons are also 1-11 at home versus the AFC as well, with our only AFC home win being in 2015 against the Houston Texans in that stretch. So anyway, here we go. Colts in Indianapolis, week 3. Now, I've already brought up our previous game against the Colts in 2015, which we lost. Now, guys, assuming Andrew Luck is healthy, which he probably will be since it's a week 3 game earlier in the season, this game is going to be really tough because, one, Indy is already a tough place to play. It's always a tough place to play. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Cowboys last year who won the division, I think they were okay against, actually, I think they were horrible against the AFC South. Yeah, they weren't that good against that division, but I know, their worst loss was in Indianapolis. And the Colts have improved. We all know that. They're not like they were between 2015 and 2017 when Andrew Luck got hurt and they fired their head coach after 2017. So the Colts are back. They revamped their offensive line in 2018 too. So, and I believe they start 1-5 and then they won 9 of their 10 remaining games. And they ended up finishing 10-6. So, yeah, the Colts, they're pretty hot. So, they got pretty hot. So, assuming Andrew Luck is healthy, which he probably will be since it's a week 3 game earlier in the season, this game is going to be really tough. So, But here's another stat to bring up. Historically, the Colts own the Falcons. And what do I mean by this? Well, if you look at the series history against the Colts, the Falcons have a 2-14 record all time. Yikes. 2-14 against the Colts all time. And it's just like our 3-14 all time record against the Browns, who also own us historically, regardless of how good or bad they might be. So if you look at the only 2 times the Falcons ever beat the Colts, you have to start with 1998, the first time the Falcons ever won in this series after losing the first 10. And 1998 was one of the Falcons' best seasons ever, while the 1998 Colts were a 3-13 team with Peyton Manning in his rookie season. And we won that game 28-21 in the Georgia Dome. Then the second time we beat the Colts was in 2011, which was an average year for the Falcons, who finished 10-6 and got in the postseason as a wild card. And we went down to Indy and stumped the horrible 2-14 team who had gotten rid of Peyton Manning the previous year, but at the same time, it was a year before Andrew Luck got there. So we faced the Colts at the perfect time. So even if you look at the 2 times we only beat the Colts, it took some of the worst Colts teams ever combined with a Falcons team who was pretty good or much better. So think about this. Assuming that the Colts are better than below average with Andrew Luck, we're going to have a tough time in this game, guys. I'm looking forward to it, and it should be a tight one. So next we have the Tennessee Titans in Week 4. That should be an interesting one. We've won the last 2 against the Titans, of course, in 2011 in the Georgia Dome, 23-17, and then that ugly 2015 game I already mentioned, about 10-7. Should be an interesting game this year, unlike the previous seasons we've played the Titans, because of course, the Titans, they're way better than they were the previous times we played them, because now they have Marcus Mariota, they have Derrick Henry, and much more big contributors to the team. I'm definitely looking forward to this game, and I really want the Falcons to finally win a home game against the AFC for once, because I'm tired. I'm so tired of losing home games versus the AFC. I mean, think about this. We have lost, 11 of our last 12 AFC games, and we're 1-11. We're 1-11 against the AFC at home, going back to 2013. So we got to fix that. So now next off, we have the Houston Texans in Houston. Oh boy, I can't wait for this one, y'all. For those who don't know, you know I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson. I really enjoy watching Deshaun Watson on the field. He's one of my favorite football players to watch on television. I really enjoy watching his game and how he runs and how he throws and everything. And despite the fact he played for Clemson, I know, and I can't stand Clemson. Even as a UJ fan, I don't like Clemson. But you know what? I really enjoy watching Deshaun Watson with Clemson. I really love his game. I love him in the game, and I like his backstory outside the game too. Straight out of Gainesville, Georgia. I mean, as a fan of Georgia and Atlanta sports, I'm telling you, I was so frustrated that the Dogs didn't recruit him not that far away from his hometown. But that's for a whole nother conversation. So anyways, week 5 against the Texans in Houston. Now, honestly, Falcons fans, I think this game's going to be tough also. And it's amazing how in the short history of the Texans and Falcons, I believe, I may have to check back, so correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the home team is undefeated. The Falcons have always won at home against the Texans, but the Falcons have always lost in Houston. Not only against the Texans, but I hate to say it, even in the Super Bowl too. So we're winless in Houston all time. So it'll be interesting to see how that'll play out and how our revamped O-line will stand against J.J. Watt and J.D. Clowney. So next we have the Arizona Cardinals in week 6. But this time in Arizona for the first time since 2013, unlike all the home games we've had against the Cardinals in 2014, 2016, and 2018. Which is interesting because it seems like whichever NFC West team we draw at home, not on the road, but at home, whenever that comes around, we always draw the Cardinals. But whenever it's an NFC West team we draw on the road, it's usually the Seahawks or 49ers. Of course, in 2011 and 2017, we draw the Seahawks on the road. But we in 2009 and 2015 we drew the 49ers on the road. But like the Cardinals, it seems to be whenever they come to Atlanta, unless we play in Arizona once every 6 years. So literally, if you look at all the even years, the even number years between 2006 and 2018, the Cardinals have come to Atlanta every year except for 2008 when we had to play the Cardinals in Arizona for the wild card game, which we lost, and they eventually got to the Super Bowl before falling to the Steelers that year. Think about this. Every playoff team Matt Ryan has lost to has made to the Super Bowl. You can't say that about any other quarterback in the NFL. Give me one quarterback in the NFL who has had all their playoff losses to the team who eventually made it to the Super Bowl. Let me see. Maybe it was Drew Brees. Nope. Not even Drew Brees because of the Minnesota Miracle, and the Vikings still fell to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Who the Falcons fell to in the divisional round? The Eagles. So, hey. But anyways, now here we go. In 2019, we're returning to Arizona again. Now, this is a game the Falcons should win, in my opinion. And I know we haven't won in Arizona since 2001, but unless the Falcons are bad enough to have another Browns-like game, we should have no trouble in Arizona. Although I don't think it'll be that easy because no road game in the NFL is ever easy. So the Falcons, the Falcons have owned the Cardinals, but mainly because they've come to Atlanta so many times where they haven't won since 1993. So now next opponent, let's see here. Oh yeah, now this is when things get really exciting. Really exciting. We have the Los Angeles Rams in Week 7. Let's see. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, let's see, who were the previous opponents? Let's see. The Houston Texans. What was the Houston Texans record was 11-5, right? And then they lost in a wild card to the Colts. And then the Tennessee Titans, I think they were 9-7 and missed the playoffs. So, yeah. And then the Arizona Cardinals, I think they were like the worst team in the NFL last year. I would have to look back at their record. But anyways, next off, we have the Los Angeles Rams in Week 7. The defending NFC champs come to Atlanta with head coach Sean McVay straight from Marietta, Georgia. And Marietta is where I attend school, by the way. And you got Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, C.J. Anderson. Oh wait, I think C.J. Anderson is with the Lions now, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna have to check that out. But who else the Rams got? Aaron Donald, Andrew Whitworth, the offensive tackle, Aqib Talib, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and much more. The Rams got lots of talent, and as we all know, Falcons fans, the last time we played the Rams in the regular season, they were a completely different team with Jared Fisher in his final season. Jeff Fisher, my bad. Why did I say Jared Fisher? Jeff Fisher. Yeah, Jeff Fisher was the name in his final season, and it was our 42-14 blowout against them in Los Angeles that got Fisher finally fired. And they made a big turnaround the following year in 2017, coming out of nowhere with an 11-5 season with the top scoring offense in the league before our Falcons with Marquand Manuel as our defensive coordinator. I still give Marquand Manuel credit. I don't blame him for the defensive failures in 2018 like most Falcons fans do, because Marquand Manuel came from the Quinn Tree in Seattle. Marquand Manuel gave us our best defense since 1998. Well, I think our best our best scoring defense since 1998. Although I still think our top scoring defense of 2017 wasn't that good either. But as a collective healthy group with Dontari Poe, Adrian Claiborne, and everyone healthy, unlike 2018, they were kind of impressive, especially for how much the offense had dipped in 2017. So that defense came into LA in the wild card game, and we beat that Rams team 26-13. And I still give our defense more credit for that game than our offense. Our offense was just trying to grind out the clock, and our defense kind of stuffed the Rams. in that wild card game. Then, of course, last season, the Rams went 13-3 and made it to the NFC Championship game against the Aints, which I will get to later in this video when I get to the Aints on our schedule. And then they were the NFC champs and made it to Atlanta for the Super Bowl. That was a great experience, by the way, before their offense got manhandled by the Patriots defense. So it's going to be interesting to see the Falcons at home versus another good Rams team this year. The Falcons have owned the Rams as of late. I believe we've won 5 straight versus the Rams going back to Matt Ryan's rookie season in 2008. And we're undefeated versus the Rams since Matt Ryan has been our quarterback. However, I believe our game against the Rams in Atlanta will be the closest one in a while. Okay, now we've gotten to half of the season, week 8 against the Seattle Seahawks, who were 10-6 last season. They snuck in the playoffs, and they lost to the Cowboys in Dallas. So, let's see. And I believe the Seahawks were the top rushing team in the NFL last season. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. So let's talk about the Seahawks. So this is another opponent I'm happy about getting in Atlanta instead of having to travel on the road in their hostile building, just like the Eagles. Of course, the biggest headline of the offseason for the Seahawks was Russell Wilson getting his new contract of a 4-year, $140 million deal with a $65 million signing bonus. Ooh, but hey, he earned it for the last 7 seasons he's been with the Seahawks. So, anyways, I'm never a big fan of the Falcons playing the Seahawks in Seattle, but this time, that's not going to be the case. They're coming to Atlanta again like they did in the 2016-17 divisional round playoff when we stumped them 36-20. So, this should be a good one. Since Russell Wilson has been the Seahawks quarterback, I believe we are 3-2 against the Seahawks and 5-2 versus Pete Carroll. And if you remember those 2 losses against the Seahawks, one of those was in 2013 when the Falcons had a bunch of injuries and we were a 4-12 team while the Seahawks that year were 13-3 and ended up winning the Super Bowl. That, of course, the blowout against the Broncos and Peyton Manning. And the other loss to the Seahawks we had was in 2016 when Julio Jones clearly got mugged in that horrible 26-24 robbery. I mean, the Seahawks absolutely cheated in that game, but we got revenge against them in the playoffs anyway. So here we go. Thank God we are at home versus the Seahawks this time. So, all right. We have now arrived at the midpoint of the season, week 9, where we have the bye week. And it couldn't have come at the most perfect time, Falcons fans. I mean, this bye week comes at a perfect time. Perfect time. So what do I think of the schedule so far? Well, I believe so far it's a lot better than last year because 4 road games and 4 home games, that's unbalanced, unlike the 2 road game and 5 home game slate of last season before our bye. So, except for the fact that we have no division rivalry games the first half of the season, which means that 6 of our final 8 games are going to be against our division rivals. You know, the Saints twice a year, the Panthers twice a year, and the Bucks twice a year. Man, y'all, that's going to be rough. And I know the NFL schedule makers did this on purpose because they wanted it to be more implications and excitement when every team plays their division rivals this year. So you get what I'm trying to say? So now on to week 10 against the New Orleans Saints, or the Aints in Stinky Town in New Orleans. So here we go, the Aints, man. Where do I start? I don't know where to start, y'all. Let me think. Let's see. Well, first of all, let me get this out of my system. Aints fans, I understand how you feel. I understand how frustrating and painful it was getting robbed out of your own building by the refs. And yes, I agree that the Saints got cheated. They got robbed by a blatant pass interference call that was missed. But you still had 3 chances, not 1, not 2. But after that missed call, you had 3 chances to stop the Rams. even after you took a 23-20 lead under 2 minutes left. On the ensuing possession, you could have stopped Jared Goff from getting his troops in field goal range and forcing overtime. Your team won the toss in overtime, of course, and had the ball, but Drew Brees threw that interception. You could have driven down the field and won the game 29-23, but instead, Drew Brees, your golden boy, threw an untimely poor interception. And then, even after the INT, you still could have stopped the Rams from winning the game 26-23. Think about that. The Rams kicker should have never gotten that long of a field goal, but instead he made that field goal and snatched your hearts out. Yet the media, and I gotta talk about the media, man. The media really pissed me off when it came to the Saints loss. Cause I'm telling you, y'all, so many fans, so many NFL fans, so many fans of other NFL teams outside of the Falcons and the Saints, outside of the NFC South, do not understand how much the Falcons and Saints rivalry means to us. Panthers fans think that the Falcons are their biggest rivals, but no. Panthers fans, y'all are the little kiddies to us. The Saints will always be our number one rival. Not you Panthers fans, but you know what? Y'all Panthers fans think the Falcons are the biggest rival to y'all, but nope, it's the Saints for us. So, and for everyone else, I'm telling you, if y'all were in the Falcons position, and if you looked at how the Saints fans reacted after that loss to the Rams, I'm telling you, it was like Cowboys fans multiplied to like the 100th power or something. I'm dead serious. It was irritating. And then there's this YouTube video called Saints Got Robbed. Don't even get me started with that video. It was so cringeworthy and so horrible. I mean, it will give your ears will bleed listening to that Saints Got Robbed video. I mean, cancerous. So, just think about it. The mainstream media made such a big deal about it when we know for a fact that had it been the Rams on the opposite side, nobody would have talked about the Rams getting robbed out of New Orleans. I guarantee you. Just like the Vikings in 2009 with the Bounty Gate situation. The media wanted a Drew Brees and Tom Brady Super Bowl in Atlanta so badly. I know no Falcons fans wanted that in our house, so we know the media will want to make a big deal about the team they want to win so badly anyway. So, think about this. When the Falcons got robbed against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game back in 2012, and the Cowboys got robbed against the Packers in 2014, the media didn't make a big deal about that. No, they didn't. Nobody cared about the Falcons getting robbed when Navarro Bowman mugged Roddy White with 1 minute remaining in the fourth quarter against the 49ers in the NFC Championship. And the Falcons had no more chances to win the game after that, unlike the Saints, who still had 3 chances to beat the Rams after a missed call. Same went with the Cowboys in the divisional round playoff against the Packers. We all remember the blatant Dez Bryant no catch that was actually a catch at the goal line. And did the Cowboys have any more chances to win that game after that? I highly doubt it from what I remember. So Saints fans in the media made too much of a big deal over that, which is why there's going to be some rule changes implemented into the game, which I'll discuss about another time. Now, with that out of my system, it looks like our Falcons and the Saints have a bye week before we meet each other in week 10. So that'll definitely be a bloodbath we'll all be looking forward to. And of course, the Saints, their final record last year was 13-3. They won the division, won the divisional round, fell to the Rams in the NFC Championship. So now on to week 11 against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Now, as much as I hate the Panthers, y'all, I would not underestimate them coming into 2019. I thought they had a pretty decent draft. I know some people disagree, but I think the Falcons draft out. To me, I think the Falcons draft outside the first two picks. Well, see, I think the second pick we had. I think the first 2 picks for the Falcons were offensive linemen, and then later on the draft we got a cornerback from Ohio State, and then we got this running back from. Man, I don't remember what the school was, but he's going to be kind of our new workhorse, So, my thing is that I think the Panthers draft was okay. Like it was, I don't think it was that bad. And they also got, I think they stole Will Grier as well. So anyways, what was I gonna say about the Panthers? Let's see. Yes, as much as I hate the Panthers, I would not underestimate them coming into 2019. We know since Cam Newton has been the quarterback for the Panthers, they have been kind of a once every other year team. And I understand a lot of Georgia natives who are fans of the Dogs or the Falcons can't stand Cam Newton because if you look at his history, he's always played for an arch rival of any of our favorite teams. Of course, he led UGA's arch rival Auburn to a 14-0 undefeated national championship season. And since he was drafted in 2011 by the Panthers, he's been in our own division. So Cam Newton, despite being from College Park, Georgia, I like how Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson come straight from Georgia, So I kind of support them and I like their play because of them coming from our own state. And he also went to Westlake High School too. So but despite all that, Cam Newton has always been on the wrong side of our favorite teams year in and year out since 2010, going back to Auburn. So I understand the frustration. But with that being said, I was saying that the Panthers are a once every other year team. And why do I say this? Because in the 24-year existence of the Panthers, they've never had back-to-back winning seasons, and they've been an odd-numbered season team. I'm going to give Cam Newton's rookie season a pass, but since 2012 and 2013, think of this pattern. 2012, 7-9 missed the playoffs. 2013, 12-4, wins division, loses divisional round against the 49ers. 2014, 7-8-1, wins a historically weak division before falling to the Seahawks in the divisional round. And then 2015, they finished 15-1 and made it to the Super Bowl before falling to the Broncos. 2016, they finished 6-10 and missed the playoffs. 2017, they went 11-5. They lost the wild card against the Saints. And then 2018, they finished 7-9 and missed the playoffs. So as you can see here, the odd numbered years seem to be the good years for the Panthers, whereas the even years seem to be the bad years. And a lot of times when you don't think the Panthers are going to be good, they end up being really good. But when the Panthers are supposed to be good, they end up being bad. It's actually like that with the Falcons too, to be honest. Our best seasons tend to come when we didn't expect much coming in. But when the Falcons expected a lot coming off a really good season, we tend to take a step back. And, it's not just that way with the Falcons. It's that way with a lot of the other Atlanta sports teams, too. Our best seasons tend to come when no one saw it coming. So, anyways, I would not count out Cam Newton coming to 2019. And remember, folks, in 2017, the Panthers were the only team in the NFC South to beat the Patriots. And they did it on the road in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And they beat a really good Vikings team who had finished 13-3. In fact, I believe the Patriots and the Vikings combined for 26 wins. Both of them finished with the 13-3 record. And the Panthers were the only NFC South team to beat both of them. And in 2018, the Panthers started 6-2 with many good wins before Cam Newton got hurt. And then they lost 7 straight, with many of those being very close, except for the Steelers blowout, which started the losing streak. Then in Week 17, they dominated the Saints in New Orleans. But, of course, the Saints had already clinched the top seed by then. So the Panthers are going to be a threat in 2019, as the Falcons are just as much as the Falcons are. So, and I know a lot of Falcons fans may disagree with me, but honestly, I could see the Saints falling apart and getting a hangover in 2019 because they can't get the devastating NFC Championship loss out of their heads. And the Saints in the later half of 2018 didn't look as good as they did earlier in 2018. And as Drew Brees started to get worse and worse, Drew Brees got worse and worse later in the season. But a healthy Panthers team and a healthy Falcons team should be able to take down a hurt and totally defeated Saints team, in my opinion. So, just my opinion. So, I think the Panthers get better while the Saints get worse. And the Falcons' fate comes down to our health and our coaching. Simple as that. So, anyways, the Panthers in Carolina should be a good one. Then we have 3 straight home games against our division rivals. The Bucks the Saints on Thanksgiving, but this time in Atlanta instead of Stinky Town. And then, of course, the Panthers returning to Atlanta again. Now, honestly, I don't really care much for the Bucs, except for the fact that now they have Bruce Arians as their new head coach returning to the NFL, who retired from the Cardinals over a year ago. And Bruce Arians is a really good and proven head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how Bruce Arians does with the Bucs talent. However, I'm still not sold on the Bucs because they have not made the playoffs since 2007. Practically the whole time Matt Ryan has been in Atlanta, the Bucs have been completely irrelevant. So until the Bucs do so, I'm sorry, but I can't trust them. I just can't trust them. Now, the Saints on Thanksgiving again, but this time in Atlanta instead of Stinky Town. And then, of course, the Panthers return to Atlanta again. Now, honestly, okay, what was I reading? Wrong area. Now, the Saints on Thanksgiving again, but this time it's going to be in Atlanta. So, Falcons fans and players, there's no excuses for not showing up and getting revenge in this game. And then next we have the Panthers and Cam Newton returning to Atlanta. Now, I want to go into more depth into the Panthers game in Atlanta because I must address these stats. Now, as we all know, the Falcons absolutely own the Panthers whenever the game is in Atlanta. In fact, in the 24-year history of the Falcons and Panthers rivalry, whenever the Falcons have made the playoffs, they had to win a home game versus the Panthers. I don't care how the game in Carolina went, whether the Falcons won or lost in Carolina, but the game at home in Atlanta, the Falcons had to always win those because whenever the Falcons lost at home to the Panthers, we've always missed the playoffs. Of course, in 2013, 2014, the only years Matt Ryan fell at home to the Panthers, we finished 4-12 and 6-10. And those were Mike Smith's final 2 seasons before he got fired from Atlanta. So, of course, not every time we've won a home game against the Panthers, we've made the playoffs. Of course, this past season in 2018, we've lost. We won 21-24, but still missed the playoffs at 7-9. And then in 2015, when we start 5-0 and miss the playoffs at 8-8, one of our wins was an upset victory over the 15-1 Panthers, and we were the only team to beat them that year. Not counting the playoffs for the Super Bowl before they fell to the Broncos, but in the regular season, we were the only team to beat that Panthers team in 2015, and that was one of my favorite Falcons games ever, by the way. And I think that was kind of like a preview of 2016 being the undefeated Panthers team who had started 15-0. That was kind of like a sign that the Falcons were going to be back come 2016. So it was a really good win. So keep that in mind, Falcons fans. So that was our long 5-game stretch against our division rivals. And now on to the next game in Week 14 on the road versus the 49ers, a reunion with Kyle Shanahan. Now, of course, by this point of the season, we would have already known the status of the Falcons season and the 49ers season. So, in the 49ers, I believe they finished, what was their final record last year? I know it wasn't good. I think it was 4-12. Let me look it up. 2018 49ers. Because, see, it looked like they were going to be good, but then when Jimmy G got hurt, then things just went sideways. So, and that was after Jimmy G got a big contract, too. Yep, they were 4-12 in 2018. So, we haven't seen a fully healthy 49ers team yet, but 49ers have improved their roster, in my opinion, with the draft and the free agency. So, so looking at the 49ers, depending on how the first 13 weeks go, will determine the magnitude of this game. Will Jimmy G be healthy? Will Tevin Coleman run all over his former team? It'll be interesting. Of course, the last time we played the 49ers, we dominated them in a 41-13 blowout at home, which was part of our Super Bowl run in 2016. 3 years can make a difference in the rosters, and the Falcons roster and the 49ers roster are completely different now. So 2016. Oh, not 20. Why did I say 2016? No, that was random. So week 16, Jacksonville Jaguars. who had a disappointing 5-11 season in 2018 after being 10-6 in 2017. And I'm not surprised. Outside 2007 and 2017, what else have the Jags done? So anyways, this will be our final game against the AFC South, and that's a huge gap between our first three AFC South games earlier in the season and our final AFC South game against the Jags. And this was kind of like that in 2015 too, because I believe our games against the Titans, Texans, and Colts in 2015 were all earlier in the season, and then our game against the Jaguars wasn't until late in the year, just like here in 2019. But now the game is going to be in Atlanta. Now, like I mentioned earlier in this video when I was talking about the AFC teams, Dan Quinn has to get over the hump against the AFC. That has been his Achilles heel as of late. We've lost 11 of our last 12 AFC games, and we're 1-11. We're 1-11 at home versus the AFC since 2013. So I don't care what the record says or whose roster is more talented or who's better, because if you could lose at home to the Chargers, Bills, Dolphins, and Bengals, then I'm pretty sure you can't overlook this game against the Jags either. So that's our home closer, by the way. So now here we go. Week 17 to close out the season. For the second year in a row, we're closing out on the road against the Bucs in Tampa Bay. Of course, we'll have to see how the season plays out to know the magnitude of this game. And I'm not surprised we're closing out on the road again, because for several years in a row before 2018, we always closed the season at home. And that's pretty much it, folks. So now I'm going to do a quick recap of the 2019 schedule. And all I have to say is that I prefer this schedule way better than the 2018 schedule, honestly, because the bye week is perfect. It's right in the middle of the season. First 8 weeks, bye week. Last 8 weeks of the season. And then once again, I like how we have 4 home games and 4 road games before the bye, and 4 home games and 4 road games after the bye. That's a way better schedule right there. Oh, and Falcons fans, did any of y'all notice that we only have 2 nationally televised games this year? Both are at home, thank God. No nationally televised road games, and no Monday night game this year, which is weird. I can't recall the last time the Falcons didn't have a Monday night game. And I also like how most of our road games are indoors. I believe our first indoor road game, no, my bad. I believe our first outdoor road game isn't until the Panthers in week 11. Well, no, that's wrong. Our first, wait a minute. Is Minnesota? Oh yeah, Minnesota is indoors. I forget because I'm thinking of the time when the Seahawks and the Vikings played in that wild card game and they were outdoors before their new stadium was built. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, the Minnesota is in indoors too. So yeah, our first outdoor road game isn't until the Panthers in week 11, and our only 2 remaining ones after that will be the 49ers in St. Clara and the Bucs in Tampa Bay, which are medium weather cities by November and December. Nothing like the tundra of Green Bay or Chicago. Thank God we're opening the season in Minnesota. Like, think about that. When it comes to the NFC North team we drew on the road this year, I'm so glad it's in Minnesota this year. Because if it was in Green Bay or Chicago, who knows what point of the season that would have been. So it's going to be interesting how 2019 for the Falcons play out. And I hope this is finally an odd year where the Falcons are good, because most odd numbered seasons, it's so weird because there's this trend with the Falcons since our existence. Our best seasons tend to happen in even numbered years. The only odd numbered years we've made the playoffs our whole history were 1991, 1995, 2011, and 2017. And in each of those 4 seasons, an NFC East team ended up winning the Super Bowl, or we ended up playing the NFC East team on the road in the playoffs who ended up winning the Super Bowl. Except for 1995, when we finished 9-7 and made the playoffs. We didn't face the Cowboys in the playoffs who won the Super Bowl. But the 91 Falcons lost to the Redskins who ended up winning the Super Bowl. They ended up winning the Super Bowl. The 2011 Giants, we fell to them. They ended up winning the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And then last season, or a season before that, 2017 to 18, we faced the Eagles in Philly. They ended up being the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So those are the odd numbered seasons we made the playoffs, but all the other odd numbered seasons we've missed the playoffs, which is another reason why Dan Quinn, so much pressure is on him to make the playoffs. It seems like if it's not, and that's the thing, not every even year the Falcons are good. Like 2018 was the worst even year for the Falcons in a long time. Like I think 2006 and 2014 were the other two even years we didn't make the playoffs. But the other even years like 2008, 2010, 2012, 2016, 2004, 2002, 1998, all those even years we've been really good. So we got, if Dan Quinn's job wants to be safe, this has to be the odd year where the Falcons are really good. So, you know. And then another thing, let's see. Honestly, if there's the only thing I really don't like about this schedule is really the fact that all of our division games are in the second half of the season. 6 of our final 8 games are against division rivals. That's brutal in my opinion. But other than that, I think the schedule is really good. Also, I think the toughest road games, in my opinion, would be the Colts in Indianapolis. Not only because we'll be facing Andrew Luck in the hostile environment, and Indy's a tough place to play, but also the fact that the Colts historically own us just like the Browns, so you got to overcome that as well. And then the Texans in Houston, we don't win in Houston, obviously. So those are going to be 2 tough road games, and it doesn't help that those are against the AFC as well, which is a conference we've struggled against lately. So, and it's good, but it's good that those games are indoors. And the Saints in New Orleans, but we're used to that. Come on now, it's a rivalry. It shouldn't matter where the game is played. You have to always bring your A game 100% against arch rivals like that. And then the game in Arizona may be tougher than we think, like I said before, because whenever the Cardinals come to our place, we always beat them. But whenever the Falcons have to come to Arizona, it's been a mixed bag. Of course, in 2013, we were stumped in Arizona 27-13. Yeah, that was the 2013 game in Arizona. That was the game when Matt Ryan had a bunch of interceptions. And then the 2008-2009 wildcard game when we lost in Arizona 30-24. So I really like how games against the Eagles, Seahawks, and Rams are at home instead of their places, because the Eagles, Seahawks, and Rams, they're really good teams. Those are and see, the Rams, since they're good now, you don't want to go to their place like it used to be when they weren't good. And then unlike it used to be when they weren't good. And then, but especially the Seahawks and the Eagles, it's a blessing that we get to play we get them to come to our place now instead of playing in Philly or Seattle, because those places are brutal. In fact, even in the 2016 run to the Super Bowl, the Falcons still lost to the Eagles in Philly, and that was the year before the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And then the Seahawks, of course, they cheated down there, so it's a good thing that the Eagles and the Seahawks are coming to our place now. And then I really like how the Saints are coming to Atlanta for Thanksgiving. So anyways, that's about it, y'all. Thanks for tuning into this video. Once again, 2WO96 here, and just to let you know, it's been a while. Thanks for sticking with this video. And before I go, I want to say that I'm taking this channel in a different direction now. So for those who remember the stuff I used to do like a few years ago on this channel, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I'm sorry. I got to move on. It's time for me to do some other stuff now. I may do one thing. I may come up with a couple of ideas. There's one other TV station. There are a couple of TV stations I may do a review on. Like, I want to do a review on the Speed channel, because the Speed channel was a channel I really liked before it became Fox Sports 1. And then I really like G4. That's another one. I want to talk about G4's history. And then Food Network, because Food Network was I really love Food Network in its prime years when Emerald Live and good eats were on before all these reality shows and these contests started airing on there like today. And then I also want to do one on the history of Disney XD and kind of some other stuff, So I'll do some videos on that whenever I have time. So, anyways, 2WO 96 here, and see you later.